So what really is depression? I'm Jodie Ann Law, and I empower women with emotional and physical pain to find their freedom. And I brought this topic up because it can be quite a controversial one when you talk to people. And I personally have experienced depression. And so is this. I read this book recently, and I want to share it because it was one of those books that I read that everything in it was like, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And it was a totally different way of looking at depression. So the book is called Lost Connections: Why You're Depressed and How to Find Hope by Johann Hari. Now, he is actually a journalist by trade, and he went on a journey of finding out about depression and what it really was because he's been on antidepressants himself from it being a teenager. And he also has it running in the family. So he wanted some answers. And I've been on antidepressants myself about 11 years ago when my life fell apart. And my experience with them was 12 months on antidepressants and having talk therapy with a psychologist. And 12 months later, I was still in the same sorry story that I'd been in. So that's when I threw that out the window and went on a totally different trajectory with complementary therapies. And I haven't looked back. And in the book, it was aha. And so some of the things that he came across were he talks about the disconnect of society and also what then needs reconnecting. So this is what is and what can we do about it? And they're really tangible social things regarding our disconnect and our reconnect to other people. Because let's face it, I actually do know our neighbours, but so many of us don't. And I don't, in all fairness, I don't know them by first name basis. But if they have any parcels coming and they're not going to be in, we'll collect, and vice versa. So, and it's a very much a student area, so very transient. And I know that not everyone's in those areas, but there's a lot of transient people out there. And even the family unit, we don't have the extended family anymore that we used to in days gone by, where life was a lot different and we weren't quite so discontent and possibly a lot happier. So that's one really big thing. And that can extend beyond just the family unit and the individual in their home, but the groups and connecting with groups of like-minded people that you really feel connected to from a heartfelt point of view, because we actually have to intend it now because it's not the natural progression of having that extended family and staying put for a long period of time. So that really resonated with me. The second one was social prescribing, and my reading into that was that the social prescribing is like, let's join a group and go running, let's join a group and do yoga. And it's just that lifestyle change within the community. The meaningful work, let's face it, when you're at work so many hours of the day, it can be a real drudge. And if our focus is, oh, that's just what we have to do to pay the bills, it's really hard to get out of bed in the morning, you know? I know that firsthand as well. I worked in the health system for 30 years, and by the time everything finished up, it was the universe kept telling me that it was time to get out. And circumstances were that I didn't listen until my health deteriorated and my health continued to deteriorate. And it was time to get out. And that was giving. I mean, in the health system, you do give, but also with complementary therapy, you start looking at life from a totally different point of view since I was introduced to all this. And it was just too hard. My soul was dying in that environment. So I had to get out. And I know that's not for everyone. That's people who have commitments with financial commitments, family commitments, and it's not so easy. But there are things that you can do to tweak their lifestyle, because everybody's put on this earth for a purpose. And if we were all living our purpose, then the life would be so different. And from my point of view, the closer I've got to my purpose, there's certainly less anxiety, less depression. And that's basically what Johann was saying in the book. He backs it all up with research. Now, point number 4, meaningful values, and that's those heart-centered approaches to life and the eco-friendliness and all those things that are starting to come in and making that bigger picture, that choice from our conscience and what we actually believe at a heartfelt level. And that, eco-friendly and organic, really big things, and things that save the planet and have a long are going to keep things running, like in our short-lived world that we live in, and our quick things that have to happen now. What about slow food and all those things that feel more wholesome and really do connect in with the heart? It's that sort of thing that we've been lacking. It was all short, sharp, and fulfill our needs right now. That's not what they mean by, don't think that's not what they mean anyway, by living in the here and now. Get it right this second. Sympathetic joy and overcoming addiction to self. So by that, it's really gratitude for where you are now. Like really thanking the situation that you're in, because we can all look at things and we can pick things to pieces. But if you actually sit in gratitude of what you actually have got, and if you look back and you've been doing a bit of work on yourself, you look back at how far you've come in the last week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. It's amazing how quickly we forget how much, and I'm terrible for that. If we actually celebrate our achievements and our victories, no matter how small, then it's that's so much more fulfilling, but they're not materialistic. So like for me, I am so grateful that the sun is shining today in Manchester. It feels absolutely beautiful. No, it's not stinking hot, and we still need layers of clothing, but my goodness me, it fills me with joy. That's one of my things that really makes me feel incredibly grateful. My children. I saw my son on the weekend he came over from Spain for a quick visit just because he got cheap air tickets and I wasn't expecting it. And it just made my heart overflow any time I spend with him. And it was only for a few hours on a couple of those days because he was with his mates most of the time. But blimey, that made me feel so amazing. So just the simple things. We have hot water for a shower. And I know that's not hard to do all the time when you're in it. But just those little things, just a couple of things a day. Now, acknowledge and overcome childhood trauma is number 6. And yeah, absolutely, that is a necessity. And that's a lot of the work with the clients that I do. Changing that, because our values and our framework is created from 0 to 7 years of age. And we've all had some form of trauma when we were younger, and some are much worse than others. And that's what's built our framework now. It's our subconscious mind. But that's another story going into that. That's a whole different video. But if you acknowledging that and being aware of them, it's the awareness that allows for that overcoming the hold it has on you. And life becomes that bit easier the more you connect with what's going on inside now. And then the connect with 7 is the here and now. Reconnect, restoring the future. So if we live in the here and now, we don't connect to the past, which is when we feel depressed, and it's that regret for not having done what we perhaps think we should have done. And anxiety is when we're looking into the future. So if we're living in the here and now and just being grateful for where we are, it makes so much difference. And if you can, and all of these are habits that we can change. And 21 days at the minimum to change a habit, more likely 6 to 8 weeks, and keep repeating it so we can rewire those neural pathways. So all of this is possible. But also, I just want to read a little bit at the end, his conclusion. So from that whole book, the whole thing is really worth reading. But this is him. If he was going to speak to his younger self when he started taking those antidepressants. The real story I would explain to my younger self has been known to scientists for decades. Depression and anxiety have 3 kinds of causes. So biological, psychological, and social. They're real, and none of these 3 can be described by something as crude as the idea of chemical imbalance, which was what he was told in the first place. The social and psychological causes have been ignored for a long time, even though it seems the biological causes don't even kick in without them. So we've got to have that environment stimulated by social and psychological for depression to even occur. if it's in our genetics. These causes aren't some kooky fringe story, I'd explain to myself. They are the official conclusion of the world's leading medical institutions. The World Health Organization, the leading medical body in the world, summarized the evidence well in 2011. They explained, mental health is produced socially. The presence or absence of mental health is above all a social indicator and therefore requires social as well as individual solutions. So they're saying that in 2011, and yet this is what, 2000, sometime later, and what's been done about it? The United Nations, in its official statement for World Health Day in 2017, explained that the dominant biomedical narrative of depression is based on biased and selective use of research outcomes that cause more harm than good, undermine the right to health, and must be abandoned. There is a growing evidence base, they state, that there are deeper causes of depression. So while there is some role for medications, we need to stop using them to address issues which are closely related to social problems. We need to move from focusing on chemical imbalance to focusing on power imbalances. So I would tell the teenage boy that the implications of these findings for his pain are massive. So that is just a little bit of his conclusion. But the point is, if we start looking at it from a different point of view, then the cure is so different than a tablet. Have a read. I'd love to hear your comments. I just found it so inspiring, and it's really worth a read. I've put the link below, and if this makes sense to you and you want to hear more, because I'll be giving more information, subscribe below, and I'll see you on the next video.